You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss one case from each year, starting in 1800. I'm Kayla,
And I'm Leah.
and we have now made it. We're officially in thankful season, I guess.
We are thankful year round. However,
I mean, true.
spooky season's over though.
It's fine. I tried watching Ghost Adventures with my boyfriend the other night. He's a skeptic. It's fine. He's just a skeptic. Like, I don't understand it. And he's sitting there and he's like, do they not realize? And I'm like, do you not realize that Zach Bagans is a millionaire from making this show?
I'm sorry. I'm with him.
And he's like,
point one for him.
well, we were watching some other stuff too, like paranormal stuff caught on camera and stuff like that. And he goes, okay, now that I can't explain.
I know.
It was
and there
like
are some
a
things you
coffee
can't.
cup on a table that like completely moved across the table, and they like show you that there's nothing attached to it, and it's like somebody's home security camera, not like somebody filming it. And he goes, and they showed a bunch of other things, and he's like, well, that I can't explain.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
like,
There are some things that you can't.
he goes, why does that dude insist on like taunting the ghosts? And I'm like, okay, I don't have time to explain to you 25 seasons of Ghost Adventures right now. All right. Just understand that that's his thing. He makes fun of them. Like, it's how it goes. It's fine. And he's like, I can't handle this. And anyways, it was an interesting night. And to the point that I was like, you're ruining this for me. And if this is going to continue, then I'm turning it off. We can find something else to watch. I told him multiple times, you can find something else to watch multiple times. He still kept watching it. And I just looked at him and I was like, we are not hate watching this show right now. That is not what we are
You
doing.
laid down the law.
He was like, I'm just saying. Like, there's an explanation. And then it was to one of those things where they like showed a sound and then whatever. And then the guy came over and he's like, and this is what happened at this time. And so there was like a thing that went across the screen that said debunked. And I was like, see? And he was like, yeah, okay. It's like, God, you just got to kill my vibe. It's fine.
Well, you know.
Look, when he starts getting haunted, it's not going to be my problem. I'm going to be like, he's the non-believer, guys. I don't know what to tell you. It's just my life, you know. It's just how I live things. Because I told him the other day, I was like, do you, this is like several months ago, I was like, do you believe in ghosts? And he was like, we are not having this conversation. And it was for other reasons that he was like, we are not having this conversation, because it was a totally different reason. But I was just like, well, like, it's a yes or no answer. Like, that's all I need. He has this theory that hospitals, he caveats it with if exist. And I'm like, keep saying if. And if any of them are around and they start coming after you, I'm going to be like, nope, him. That guy right there. Tall one in the hat. That one. Yeah. I was like, mm-mm. And he's like, I mean, if they exist, then I think that they would be more concentrated like at hospitals. And I was like, maybe I could see that. And then we kept talking about it and we're watching Ghost Adventures and it pops up on the screen and it's like a new show starting on Travel Channel. Haunted hospitals. And I was like, there you go.
No,
and he goes like,
absolutely
no,
not.
I'm
Absolutely not.
I'm like, haunted hospitals just sound worse. Like,
absolutely
that sounds worse than like, and they're always abandoned haunted hospitals.
Yes.
And it's like,
or, asylums.
oh, that's the worst.
Oh,
That's the worst. The show BuzzFeed Unsolved. It's only a YouTube show, but they do like a lot of crime stuff.
Yeah,
and
no.
for like Halloween and stuff, they decided to go to all these different like haunted locations. Like they went to this house in Gettysburg and they did all these different things, but they stayed there overnight and like filmed it.
Not me.
And they went to oh my gosh, I have to think of the name of this asylum. But anyways, they went to
Sounds like a setup for a horror movie.
It truly was.
Nope.
And it's only them filming it. So it's like there's not a cameraman with them. It was they were wandering around this place at night. And this was it's in Kentucky, I want to say.
I mean, that just lacks of intelligence
But
to
it
me.
was
No.
created as a tuberculosis hospital.
Oh
And
no.
so like it was supposed to be a resort hospital. So
Like in the mountains with the
right.
clear air and that
And
sort
it was
of thing.
self-sustaining and they had like a farm there and
Uh-huh.
everything. But it was on a hill, and I cannot think of the name of it right now, but it was on a hill, and they they had a body chute that went from the hospital to the bottom of the hill because so many people were dying, like they had to get them down there. So they're wandering around.
I mean, work smarter, not harder. I get it, but that is terrifying.
They're wandering around this hospital, and they have no clue where they're going. And all of a sudden, they turn a corner, and the guy's like, does it feel like this like pathway is like kind of slowly sloping down? And then they turn the corner again, and he's like, nope, it's because it like they turned a corner, and it was like where
the drop off.
Yeah, and he goes, nope. He's like, it's a body chute, and turned around and ran.
I mean,
he's like, I'm not about this.
That would be creepy in the daylight. No.
And it was like underground. It was so creepy.
No.
So yeah, we got onto a good thing of those because he showed me this video it was like this video taken forever ago in Gettysburg or something. And he's like, that's the only time that I've ever thought that ghosts exist is because of this video. And I was like, it's pretty good of it. Like it's convincing. It's one of those things that you see it. It's not scary, but it's one of those things that you see it and you're like, there's no other explanation.
Right.
It's not mist. It's not like lights hitting off of something. So he was like, that's the only time that I ever. So then we got on a rabbit hole on YouTube of videos. So it's always spooky season at my house. It's fine. I'm happy with that. Look, if I could keep up like Halloween decorations, if I could decorate, like really decorate for Halloween, there's some of these people on TikTok that they're called maximalists. Like it's the opposite of a minimalist. And they like paint their walls like black and it's like, but it looks really, really good. And I just keep staring at it and I'm like, I'm either going to go in one direction in my life. Right now, I'm a minimalist. It could turn.
If I had the money, it would turn now.
It could turn quick. And I'm like, and I would live that way year round, just spooky. Like I live in the haunted mansion. I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy with that. I'm all right with it. No. I mean, it's fine.
I got to have sparkle.
You could do black sparkles. It's fine. It's all right. So we are, now that we've gone on our first rabbit hole of the week or body shoot, what have you.
Yeah.
We are in the year 1824 and we are going to be discussing a very interesting topic.
I don't know. I don't even know what it is yet.
Yeah.
We've already talked about a body shoot. I don't even know what the case is.
Case can only go up from here.
Bump.
Opposite direction of the body shoot. So, anywho,
and I'm really tired. I've been up a long time.
Yeah,
guys.
I told her she's got to stay awake because she's gonna have some reactions. I can tell you that some outrage is gonna happen. It's gonna be a thing. Our sources for this week: we have Insider.com, we have NativeTimes.com, and we have the Indy Encyclopedia.org. So you know it's legit because it's a .org.
Does that have to do with Indiana Jones?
No.
Well, you said Indy Encyclopedia. I got excited.
Like Indiana
Jones.
No.
I got excited for a minute. Okay.
That's all right. We were watching, I was telling Leah earlier that me and my boyfriend decided to watch Waterworld last night. Bad idea.
Different actor.
It was I know, but that made me jump to, also Sean Connery was in that. Okay, this is how my mind works. Okay, Indiana Jones, Sean Connery was in the third one. Sean Connery was in Untouchables. Kevin Costner was in Untouchables. Kevin Costner was in Waterworld. That's where my brain went to.
Connect the dots.
I know.
La, la, la.
It was Yeah. So, anyways, we were watching that, and
I asked her why she was watching Waterworld.
it
Not his best moment.
it wasn't by choice. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Craziest?
That's what I'm going with. My boyfriend really appreciated my commentary on it as
Oh
I was
my.
watching, so it was quite funny. But we were watching that, and and I said, "Was this before or after Untouchables?" Because Untouchables is like good Kevin Costner, like
yeah.
hot Kevin Costner, and I was like, "So he just went downhill after that, huh?"
I mean.
And he was like, "Well, he was Robin Hood during." And I said, "So he just went downhill after Untouchables, right? That's what you're telling me." He's like, "Well, Robin Hood." And I said, "Do I need to repeat my statement?"
Robin Hood was good.
It's all right. Anyways, we'll continue.
I mean, Bryan Adams' song, Everything I Do.
Yeah, it's such a
middle school dance.
maybe
Memories.
your middle school.
Hey.
Not mine. We were Get Low came out when I was in middle school.
Stop it. I was singing that the other day, by
To
the way.
the window. To the wall. Imagine
makes
a
me sing.
sea of middle schoolers singing and dancing to that song.
You know what? That makes me think of Sandra Bullock.
Yes. This is such a good movie.
From The Proposal.
Oh, it's such a good movie. Betty White, she's still hanging in there. All
I
right.
love her. Older than sliced bread, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Literally.
So funny.
Anyway.
So our events in 1824.
Gosh, that was in my head.
Such a good. February 4th of 1824, J.W. Goodwrench introduced rubber galoshes to the public.
Wonderful things.
Yes. March 11th, the U.S. Bureau, this is the name of it, the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs was formed by John C. Calhoun without authorization from Congress.
Oh.
He pulled a George Washington right there.
He said, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it. In April of that year, the United States Literary Gazette, a semi-monthly publication, began. It published poetry by many poets, including Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and William Cullen Bryant. April 15th, to defend the Cherokees' possession of their land, Chief John Ross petitions Congress and fundamentally altered the traditional relationship between an Indian nation and whites.
Okay.
May 15th, a boiler explosion occurs on the steamship Etna, underway in Upper New York Bay, killing more than 10 passengers and injuring many more.
That does not sound good.
No. May 26th, the Arkansas Territory split to create, part of it was to create Indian Territory, like that's what it was called. June 8th, the washing machine was patented by Noah Cushing of Quebec. I am aware that that's Canada, guys, but it was just a really cool event that happened that year.
That's
it impacted really cool us thing. All.
Absolutely. Very thankful for it.
August 16th. Lafayette visited the United States once again. He departed on September 7th. It was just a nice thing to...
Was he waiting there in Chesapeake Bay?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's just how it was. At this point, Hercules Mulligan had already passed. It's a sad time. October 26th, the U.S. presidential election opened, and Andrew Jackson received more popular votes than John Quincy Adams. This is the first election that type of vote is reported. November 1st, Miami University, which was chartered in 1809, but it was actually, this was when it was official. November 1st, Miami University delivered its first classes in Oxford, Ohio. Yes, this is Miami, Ohio.
Interesting.
Miami, the name Miami University actually comes from the name of a native tribe. That's why it's called Miami. Just in case people were wondering. Not the Miami that you think of. November 5th, Stephen Van Rensselaer established the Rensselaer School, which became the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It is the oldest technological university in the English-speaking world.
Ooh.
November 16th, New York City's Fifth Avenue opened for business.
Fifth Avenue.
Gotta love Fifth Avenue. November 21st, the first Jewish Reform congregation was formed in Charleston. December 1st, during the presidential election, no candidate received a majority of the total electoral college votes in the election. The United States House of Representatives was given the task to decide whether, this was as stipulated by the 12th Amendment of the United States Constitution, still there, the U.S. House of Representatives had to decide who the winner was going to be.
Oh.
Yes. December 24th, the Chi Phi fraternity is founded at Princeton University. It is considered the oldest men's college social fraternity. There is a lot of debate as to who is the first, because next week's episode we'll talk about another one, and they also claim to be the first. So it's very interesting. So we'll get to that as well. Some undated events that happened in 1824. An Iowa native tribe was removed from their location and placed on a reservation in Kansas. This is said to be like the start of the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
Thomas Say began the publication of American Entomology, or Descriptions of the Insects of North America and Philadelphia, which concluded the first description of the Colorado potato beetle.
Interesting.
And John Neal published serially the first written history of American literature.
That's cool.
Our births in 1824, we have January 21st, Stonewall Jackson. He was a Confederate general and an Aquarius. March 26th. I know.
I mean, every time.
March 26th, unaware of whether it's, I pronounce it Levy, some say Levi, some do not, some don't. So I'll say Levi. P. Morton. He was the 22nd vice president of the U.S. He's an Aries. The reason that's confusing, so for some people, because somebody commented on our Instagram about it after they had listened to our very first episode. And we say Levy because that's the way that it's said in Hamilton. And Lin-Manuel Miranda worked very closely with the man, Ron Chernow, who wrote the biography for Hamilton. And so he worked very closely with him to fact check the musical. And so they say Levy in the musical, which is why we say Levy in the first episode, because it's factually checked. So I would think that would be the better way to say it. But it's either, it could be Levy, it could be Levi. There's other ways there's one other way to pronounce it too, but there's really, there's so many ways to pronounce it. There's no telling.
And I mean, around here, if you see that name right now,
it's Levi.
Yeah, we would say Levi.
Yeah. So
if you see it on a pair of jeans.
Yeah, that was my thing, is I was like, we say Levy, my comment back was, we say Levy like I drove my Chevy to the levee.
Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee
I
was
said
dry.
other people say Levi like the jeans. So it just depends on who it is. Anyways, he was the 22nd vice president and he was an Aries. Then we have August 15th, Charles Godfrey Leland. He's an American humorist and folklorist. He wrote, this is the title, A Dictionary of Slang, Jargon, and Cant Embracing English American and Anglo-Indian Slang, Pidgin English, Gypsies Jargon, and Other Irregular Phraseology.
Wow, that is quite a title.
Yes. And he also wrote Aradia, or The Gospel of Witches. So he wrote the official, which we talked about in an episode, that Wicca is like an earth-based religion is what Wicca is. And so he wrote the first, essentially the first Wicca Bible. And
wow.
He's a Virgo. September 27th, Benjamin Apthrop Gould. He's an American astronomer who created the astronomical.
There you go.
There I go. Whoa, that word did not look right.
I know. When you said it, I was like,
astronomical. Well, I went from saying astronomer to trying to, my mind was like, that doesn't.
something.
Yeah. Anyways, he was a Libra. He actually has the Gould belt is named after him, and it's like he discovered it. He was born in 1824, but he
It's not a gold belt, it's the Gould belt.
Gould. And he discovered it. Keep in mind, this is 1824, which, like, I understand, like, Galileo and everything was centuries before.
You know
But
that song wants to burst out.
so he found a belt near the Milky Way that's like 33,000 light years away, and it's named after him.
That's pretty cool.
I think I said he's a Libra. October 5th, Henry Chadwick, he was a sports writer and baseball statistician. He edited the first baseball guide that was sold to the public. He created box scores, which are the stats for players during the game that you'll see kind of like that flash across the screen. He created that. And he created the abbreviation K as a strikeout. Do you know why a strikeout is a K?
I do not.
He chose the abbreviation of K because the last letter in struck is K, and S was already used as sacrifice in the game of baseball.
Well, there you go.
For those of you who do not know what sacrifice is, I made sure with my boyfriend, avid baseball coach and
guru
and avid watcher of baseball, I did ask him to make sure. I was like, if you were to describe a sacrifice, is this what you would say? And he was like, yes, actually. So I was very proud of myself. A sacrifice play in baseball is when the batter allows a teammate to score a run while sacrificing his ability to do so and will most likely be called out. So it's like if you see a guy up to bat and he bunts the ball, he's most likely going to get out because he bunted the ball and somebody's going to get it. But if there's a guy at third that's going to get a run, he sacrificed himself. So the other guy, so they label it as a sacrifice instead of an out.
Gotcha.
So I was very proud of myself that I figured that one out. My boyfriend would be remiss for me to not say go Braves. At this point in time, after they just won the World Series, it's a big thing. I think I've said before, my boyfriend is from near Atlanta. Atlanta sports are a big thing for him, so it was quite a deal for the Braves to win, which I saw something that was really funny. And sorry, I know we have some Texas listeners, so I apologize to any Astro fans out there, but it was this video of the Braves mascot like running across the field with the Braves flag after they won. And it was a MLB TikTok. And the third comment, I screenshotted it and sent it to him. And again, sorry, Astros fans. It says, when the Astros lose, all of America wins. There were a lot of speculation. I mean, again, sorry, Astros fans. There was a lot of speculation that they cheated a lot. And it was one of those things. It was very interesting, though. But fun fact for those of you who did not know, during the World Series, Snitker is the coach for the Braves, right? Like, he's the head coach for the Braves. His son is the batting coach for the Astros.
I didn't know
so
that.
They were playing each other.
Oh, how tough.
Yeah, but it was really sweet because anyways, when Snitker got the trophy, his wife was kind of like off to the side, and this was after the game, and they were like presenting them with the World Series trophy, and my boyfriend didn't get to see it. He was on the phone with his dad, and I was watching it, and I'm not an emotional person, as most people know.
I am.
You should know by now that I'm not. And I about lost it because they handed Snitker the trophy, and then they were asking him questions, like, how does it feel? And all those normal questions. And then when they got done talking to him, he looked over and he was like, honey. And you could tell his wife wasn't paying attention. And he goes, honey. And she turns around and she looks at him and he's like, we did it. And the camera panned to her and she started crying. And I'm like,
so sweet.
So we watched the highlights the next day and I was like, oh gosh, it's here again. And he watched it and he was like, yeah, that got me a little bit too.
So sweet.
So anyways, now you know who created all those things. His name's Henry Chadwick. We have him to thank, maybe, I don't know, for those of you whose husbands disappear during baseball season or any significant other, not just husbands, disappear during baseball season. I apologize, but it's over now. You get a break for a bit. He's a Libra. So there's that. And our last birth of this year on a very important day, December 11th.
Oh, very important day.
Very important day. In my life, specifically, I might have someone turning 7 this year.
No.
Gosh. um, December 11th, Major Jonathan Letterman was an American surgeon who is credited as being the originator of the modern methods for medical organization in armies or battlefield medical management.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
he
you, sir.
is a Sagittarius. So yes, he is credited as being, he was the first like surgeon that actually created like, you go here, like MASH. He
I was
created
gonna
that.
say MASH.
So
Great show, by the way.
very
Great
good
show.
show.
If you've never watched it,
Very good show.
I watched it growing up.
Our deaths in 1824, March 2nd, we have Susan Rousen. She was a British American novelist, poet, and playwright, and religious writer. She was also a stage actress and educator, and considered the first female geographer.
Sounds like she was a busy lady.
She was a very busy lady. Then April 3rd, we have Sally Seymour. She's just a fun name. I had to put her in here simply because of the name.
Makes you think a Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, I did. Feed me. Anyways, which is even funnier considering she was an American pastry chef and restaurateur. Feed me, Seymour. If y'all have not watched Little Shop of Horrors, I watched it when I was way too young, so it kind of creeped me out a little bit. But oh gosh, so funny. Anyways,
What do you want from
I
me?
know.
Blood?
So funny. And let's get into it for this week.
We only had 2 people die that year.
Not so.
Only 2 people of note.
Well, I really try, unless they're very well known. Like Stonewall Jackson is well known. People know who Stonewall Jackson is. Even like, I don't care which side you were on in the Civil War or Confederate. I don't care.
Still a person.
I don't care.
Of note.
But anybody knows who he is. That's kind of just a famous name that you've heard. Just, like Abraham Lincoln's a famous name, those kind of names. Like he's kind of in that realm. A lot of people that they put in here are like, this guy was a congressman from this year to this year.
Sure.
So I try to not do all those.
Well, yeah, I just wondered if
Yeah.
it was surprising you just had 2 people
there's
of note.
more than that. But they were all like, this person was in Congress from this
Gotcha.
year to this year. This person was governor of this state from this time to this time. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
I mean, great. And
great.
We're thankful for the work that you did and
Yeah.
how you served your country.
And it's like this person who did this in this battle. And I'm like, okay, well, so unfortunately, unless they're very well known in their
right.
area, I try to put other people. So March 24th of 1824. Thank you, Claire. She's made herself known again this week. She made herself known in the last episode as well. We talked about her making biscuits. She's not making them now. She's licking her paw. Most expensive free cat I've ever had in my life. Anyways, not bitter.
She's beautiful.
She is very beautiful. And we talked about it before. She was diagnosed with something. We thought she was fine. She's not fine. Anyways, it's a whole ordeal.
But we're working.
We'll see what happens. I told Leah earlier, I have a cat that adopted us. Y'all have heard about him, Knox. He adopted us. He was completely free because he just showed up on my front porch. And he has feline aids. And I just said, how is the free cat that showed up on my porch with feline aids the least maintenance out of all of my animals? Anyway, so March 22nd of 1824, to go on a low note, 9 Native Americans were brutally murdered between Fall Creek and Deer Lick Creek in Madison County. The 9 victims made up of 2 families that included 2 men, 3 women, and 4 children who were under the age of 10. June 3rd of 1825, and this is, yes, the massacre is terrible. We will discuss it. There is a larger historical significance to this case, which is why I decided to do this. June 3rd of 1825, for the first time in U.S. history, white settlers were legally executed for killing Native Americans. It was the first time it ever happened. This is a very historical event because at this time, this was still when, we'll go through it, it was real bad time. Real bad time between whites and Native Americans.
Right.
So, yes, this was the first time that white settlers were legally executed for killing Native Americans. And we're going to be, like I said before, in Madison County, Indiana. It is located almost in the dead center of Indiana. The original inhabitants of the area were mound builders, and they were Adina Hopewell, whose earthwork creations can still be seen in the county today. So those big mounds that you'll see of like grass that you'll see in a lot of different areas, they were mound builders. So very interesting. More recently to the creation of Madison County, the area was occupied by the Delaware Native tribe. The Treaty of St. Mary's of 1818 was a series of treaties made between the United States and natives of central Indiana. 6 separate treaties were completed at St. Mary's, Ohio, between the United States and Seneca, Shawnees, and Ottawas, which took place September 17th, with the Wyandot. Made sure that I was going to say that right. On September 20th, the Potawatomi tribe, October 2nd. It's either the Wea or the Wee tribe. It's said 2 different ways. It's spelled W-E-A. So it's either Wea or Wee. Couldn't get firm either way because I tried. The Delaware tribe, October 3rd, and the Miami tribe, October 6th. Madison County was officially created in 1823, so just a couple of years before this, from the New Delaware Purchase, which is another name for the treaties of St. Mary's. The county was named after future president and co-author of the Federalist Papers, James Madison. He wrote 29. All I could think of.
The other 51.
All I could think of while I was writing that is I was like, James Madison wrote 29, which I've told, again, sorry guys, I've told Lee about this before because this is just what cracks me up about that part of the play is that, they say John Jay got sick after writing 5 and they were all the work was, again, work divided evenly among the 3 men. And so I told Leah, so they say John Jay got sick after writing 5. James Madison wrote 29. And I can just imagine James Madison's so proud of himself because he went above and beyond. He did not have to write that many. He wrote more than I think they were supposed to have total.
Like he did extra credit.
Right. And he was like strolling up in there with his parcels all bundled up and wrapped, going to pass them over. And then Hamilton just walks in with like 4 boxes.
Ba-boom.
And he's like, here you go. I can just see James Madison going, can I not just have one thing? Just one. Just one. So the first county courthouse, this is interesting. The first county courthouse was authorized in the county in 1828. But its authorization was revoked in 1829. Couldn't figure out why, but it just said it was revoked. In 1831, a second authorization was passed, and the completed building was placed in service the following year.
Was it the same building?
It was, I have no idea.
You're cool. Wait, nope, you're not cool. Wait, you are cool again. Proceed.
It's just so funny. During the Indiana gas boom, all natural gas deposits were discovered in the county in 1887 at Alexandria and Anderson. The offer of free natural gas brought several factories to the county. Some of the most notable people from this area are Melvin E. Biddle. He is a World War II Medal of Honor recipient. Just thought that was a nice one. Crystal Harris. You ready for another song to be stuck in your head?
Oh, dear.
Crystal Harris, those of you who have watched Princess Diaries, she is the singer of the song Supergirl. I'm a supergirl, and I'm here to save the world, but I want to know who's going to save me. Yeah. That is at the very beginning and at the very end of Princess Diaries. It's a very well-known song. If you have watched Princess Diaries about 125 times like I have, you know the song. And Louis J. Weichman, maybe, sure. He is a witness for the prosecution in the trial of the conspirators involved in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you. Again, Claire. Another terminology lesson this week. Woohoo! Y'all got science. Y'all got English.
Now
terminology. Again,
I mean,
it's just a whole thing. This is actually very important because I don't want to offend anyone in this episode. So some people might get tired of these things, but I love knowledge and I'm a why person. So you get to go on this journey with me.
There you go. We believe knowledge is power.
It is. It's I promise, guys, it's not going to be as long at all as last week or the week before. It's something.
We always say that.
Well, this is something that Leah brought up in an earlier episode. And we discussed. I can't remember which one, but this week we are going to.
We have so many.
I know, now we do. I had to remember. I had to look up something earlier, and I was like, "What episode was that?" Could not remember. It was episode 1. Because So this week we are going to talk about people of the Seneca and Miami Native tribes. There's some debate on whether they were from separate tribes or if they were both of the Seneca Nation. But I read an article from the Insider that I cited at the top that was written by someone who is Sechango Lakota native. All right. The writer's name was Benny Wayne Sully. And they said that a good rule of thumb for this is when referring to natives. Call us Native American, Indigenous, First Nations, or by our specific band or tribe if you want some extra ally points. That's a direct quote from that person. Now, there is a lot of debate about terminology in this respect because there are some tribes who prefer to be called Indian based off of tradition. Mm-hmm. There is an article also, because guys, I looked at both sides of this because I really wanted to make sure that I did not do anything wrong on this. I hate to be really disrespectful, so I try to be really socially conscious about it. There is an article from the Native Times from 2015 that is titled Native American versus American Indian. Political correctness dishonors traditional chiefs of old. In this particular article, which was only labeled as written collectively by the Native Sun News editorial board, it didn't say like a specific name. The writer said, quote, one elderly Lakota man from the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation said recently, if some Indians want to be called Native Americans or natives, let them be called that. But I was born an Indian and I shall die an Indian. So if you travel to an Indian reservation out west, you will soon discover that nearly all of the indigenous people refer to themselves as Indian, especially the elders who are still fluent in their Indian language. As Chief Oliver Red Cloud said a few years before he died, I am a Lakota and I am an Indian. So in other words, I have no clue what to do. Absolutely no clue. So I will say that I'm going to try to use proper terminology to not offend anyone. And if I do, I apologize profusely. Please understand that it is just coming out of a place of respect. I am not trying to disrespect.
No offense is meant, and we're trying to say and do the right thing, but there are conflicting right things being told to us.
I don't know what to do. And two,
well, it's different preferences.
Right. It's all based off of preference. And then two, in this case, it's okay, we'll go off of what the tribe is. Well, there's so much debate as to where this group was from. They could have been of a mixed tribe, and that why so
you don't want to call it the wrong tribe.
I don't, yes, because I think that's even more disrespectful.
Right.
So it's a whole thing, guys. I really try. So with that being said, let's go. I put in my best Lin-Manuel Miranda voice. So
dun, dun, dun.
Let's go. The Fall Creek Massacre is also alternatively known as the Massacre at Deer Lick Creek. Very interesting name for a creek.
I mean,
I don't know how you get. Anyways,
was there just one deer licking the creek, or were there multiple deer? And were the deer licking each other, or were they licking the creek?
The deer could not be tracked down to give a statement, so I don't know.
I mean, I'm curious because that's kind of an ambiguous name.
It is. It's very confusing. So, between November of 1823 and February of 1824, a small group of Native Americans arrived at the banks of Deer Lick Creek near Pendleton, Indiana, in Madison County. The group set up camp and planned on hunting, gathering furs, and collecting maple syrup in the areas around the creek. The camp was somewhat close to a village of settlers, which was intentional so that they could easily trade with this group of settlers. Some claim that the group of Native Americans, like I said before, was composed of both Seneca and Miami Native tribes. Then some just say Seneca, then some throw in Shawnee, Delaware, or they might have been mixed tribe affiliations. Who knows? Either way, there were, and I know at the top I said 2 men died. There's a reason. Either way, there were 3 men, 3 women, 2 boys, and 2 girls. All of the children, again, like I said, were under the age of 10. The locals knew the 3 men only as Logan, Ludlow, and Madole. It's kind of like the names that they were given. It's not clear if that was actually their name. But for continuity purposes, I honestly had to give them a name to begin with because there's so many different ways. Just stick with me, guys. That's all I can say. We've discussed this before in cases, but there seem to be 2 stories to the next portion. Some sources say that the settlers had friendly relationships with a group of Native Americans and even referred to Logan as, quote, a friend of the white men. However, historians have posited that tensions were growing between Ludlow and a few of the settlers, namely James Hudson, Thomas Harper, and John T. Bridge Sr. in the days leading up to the murders. All 3 of those men are going to become very important. We'll say important. I hate to say that, but they'll become important in this case. So,
key players.
Yes, that's what we'll say. I hated to say main characters because anyways. That's where I was going.
Players.
Hudson claimed that he heard Ludlow threaten to kill any of the settlers who messed with any of his animal traps. Hudson also added that Ludlow allegedly threatened his wife because she refused to trade with him. Harper and Bridge visited the camp a few days before the attack, and Hudson thought Bridge was going to poison the Native Americans, but he ended up changing his mind. Hudson also added, you'll appreciate this one. Hudson also added that Ludlow purchased a dog from Harper, and Ludlow was furious when the dog was taken away. I would be furious as well.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Don't give me a dog and take it away.
All I can say is that all of these stories combined are from Hudson. So, something to think about.
All one source.
Yep. Hudson was originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and moved to Kentucky and then Ohio, and finally settled in Madison County with his family and his wife, Phoebe. Harper was a bit of a drifter and was known as a frontiersman who came to Madison County from Butler, Ohio, early in 1824. Harper was very outspoken of his hatred of Native Americans. Harper's younger sister, Elizabeth, was allegedly kidnapped by Native Americans when she was only 3 years old. And Native Americans also allegedly, because I have no idea, that's why I'm putting these words in here, allegedly killed his brother during the War of 1812. Again, I say allegedly because I don't know if this is a fact.
Sure.
So to make things more confusing, Harper was the brother-in-law of our 3rd settler in this case, Bridge. I refer to everyone by their last name or just one name because there are a lot of names, and I try to keep confusion to a minimum. As Patrick and Ellen say on Obsessed with Disappeared, people might be cleaning while listening to us or doing other tasks or soothing, calming voices in the background. So the less confusion, the better on names.
There you go.
So I try to really try to make sure that those are not confusing. So Bridge,
our voices are soothing?
I don't know. I'm saying that they are. I figure you put that out in the universe. It makes it true.
I'll go with it. I've been told that my voice is like a Disney princess. I'll take it. I will take it.
So Bridge was originally from Boston, Massachusetts, and also moved to Ohio and then Indiana with his wife, Mary Harper, and their children in 1819. 2 years after the family arrived in Indiana, Mary died, and Bridge might have married the sister of his neighbor, but there's no confirmation. The only reason this is important is because the neighbor's name was Andrew Sawyer, and he is also involved in these murders.
Okay.
But there isn't any additional information given for him. So Harper, Hudson, Sawyer, and Bridge were at a house raising on Friday, March 19th of 1824. They started discussing the presence of the Native American families in the area, and as things typically go, the conversation was heating up, and when you add liquor to that, just gets worse. Which I'm gonna interject this here. It's a hot take. I understand. Men gossip more than women. And I am just going to say that because all the time men are like, oh, you women, you just.
I don't necessarily think more, just more than people think they do or say they do.
Oh, no. They're little gossipers. Don't. So, as I've said before,
I want to say they're just as bad.
my boyfriend works in the automotive industry. And you know how like Days of Our Lives, it says like, and so is sand through the hourglass. He calls it as the rotor wheel turns.
I love it.
Because he says that like they're the worst about gossiping.
Sure.
And then my ex's dad is a truck driver for years, and they are the worst. And he was also a member of a hunting club, which that you just,
golly.
let me tell you, I don't want
Group of men sitting around a campfire.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And the politics that are involved in everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I would sit there and I'm like, and y'all say that women gossip. You men are a bunch of little gossips, and I don't want to hear it. You get riled up with each other, and I don't want to. It's insane. These guys, they're just so. They added liquor to their gossip sesh, and it got worse. The men somehow
liquor doesn't help.
I know. The men somehow came to a resolution that if any of their new neighbors stole their property or threatened their wives, then they were going to be killed. 2 days later, Sawyer went to the Hudson farm to tell Hudson that 2 of his horses were missing and he needed help catching them. Here's another slew of names, guys. The 2 men also got Bridge Sr. and Bridge's 2 sons, Harper, a kid named Andrew Jones, and Sawyer's son to try and find the horses. But they weren't able to find them. They all went back to Sawyer's cabin on Monday morning, and they started to suspect that the Native Americans camping by the creek were to blame, even though the horses were not there either. So
obviously it was them.
Right. You get it. You get it. The group left Sawyer's home, headed towards Deer Lick Creek. Madole was not at the creek when the group arrived because he had gone out to check on some animal traps. But the rest of the group were there. Hudson and Sawyer asked Logan and Ludlow for help looking for the horses, and the men agreed with the promise to be paid 50 cents each. It's $14 today, just FYI. $14.14 to be specific. The group went into the woods, quote, searching for the horses, and they were still drunk until they reached an abandoned cabin where they stopped and drank some more. And once the liquor was gone, they split up into 2 groups. Logan went with Hudson, one of Bridge's sons, and the kid Andrew Jones, while Ludlow went with Harper, both father and son Sawyer, and Bridge Sr., the dad. The other Bridge son was with the group at one point, but he left, which, like, good for him. It comes back. So, yeah, it's... Oof. Logan was walking ahead of the group of the men he was searching with, and Hudson stepped toward Logan. I'll give you a couple seconds here for a trigger warning if you don't want to hear about some pretty gnarly stuff. So go. Skip. So Hudson stepped towards Logan and shot him in the head. The Bridge son in this group hit Logan in the head with the rifle and then stabbed him several times before the men hid Logan's body in the woods. In the other group, Harper shot Ludlow in the back while the others watched. It's unclear what happened to Ludlow's body after this because it was never found.
I mean, wow.
We're not done. Sorry.
Shot him in the back. I mean, that's pretty
cowardly.
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
I mean, the other one, that was like, I mean, you know, you shot him why?
Well, and what's even worse is like he's walking in front of him, like he's walking in front of the group, and then also, so he's like, it's one guy walking in front, and then there's like one guy in between, and then the rest of the group behind him. So it's like the rest of the group is just watching everything happen. It's insane. We're still not done with our trigger warning, guys, because now we got to get back to the camp by the creek. And there's nothing completely... I did not insert details into what happened here because children are involved. and I did not want to do that.
Good.
So everyone except Hudson went back to the camp by the creek. This is the trigger warning, just because kids. Where they brutally murdered the 3 women and the 4 children. Madole was walking towards the camp when he saw the murders ahead of him. One of the men in the group saw Madole and shot at him as well. Madole was wounded, but it's unclear if he died there or not. Madole's body was never found either. Total, the group ended up killing 9 people.
Ugh.
It gets worse. We'll get
Like
to
they
that.
set out to do this. That's
Yeah.
I mean,
So 2 men, 3 women, and 4 children. Madole is not included in this count since it's unclear if he ran to safety or not. So they don't include him in that count. So while there were 10 people, like all together, they only say the 9. The group raided the camp and stole everything they could get their hands on before going back to their homes.
classy.
I'm not, I don't know if most people are aware. I mean, I do know we have listeners in other countries, and we do have some city folks that like to listen. I'm a semi-city folk, but I do know quite a bit about the country. So if you're not aware, gunshots are very loud.
Yeah, they are.
So
I mean, you don't have to be from the country to know that gunshots are loud.
You hear them more in the country though, but just because people, if you're out in the country, a lot of people have got a lot of land. You never know what it really is. Somebody could be doing target practice. Somebody could just be mad at some squirrels. You never really know what it is, but you know the sound when you hear it.
Well,
Sometimes,
I mean,
sometimes you go, "Is that a car?" Rifle noises are loud. Like it's not like a handgun. It's a very loud, deliberate
depending
noise.
on the handgun. Because
that is true.
My husband has some pretty big handguns.
Some pretty loud ones.
Yeah.
So word spread that gunshots were heard in the woods, and the group of Native Americans by the creek were missing. Also, apparently Sawyer wasn't super quiet about what was happening either, or what happened that day. A search party,
little traumatized, maybe,
or braggadocious.
We'll
see. A search party was gathered in the nearby settlement, and they went searching for the missing group of people, which was very nice of them to go searching for them. I like to think. I mean, yes, common human decency, but still. And what do you know? The missing horses somehow found their way home. Interesting, huh?
Shocker.
A neighbor was staying over at the Bridge house, and he overheard conversations about the Native Americans. Once the neighbor arrived back home, he told his father what he heard. The father and son, who have the last name of Adams, I intentionally did not put their first name because it'd be very confusing to the story. Not the same John Adams. So just refer to them as Adams. The Adams told Sawyer what they found out, and Sawyer said, "Oh, yeah. Weird. I heard gunshots too." Of course he did, because he was there.
Yeah. He heard and saw the effect.
Yeah. This is, sorry guys, this gets real frustrating, and this is where Leah's going to get mad. Adams went to search for the camp, and the bodies were discovered. Surprisingly, one of the women was still alive.
Oh, no.
She was unable to explain what happened, and the men left to go report what they found.
Didn't help her.
Just hold on.
Didn't help her?
Just
didn't take her with him?
It gets worse in a second, so just...
oh, no.
2 days later, another group arrived at the camp, and the woman was still alive. The second group...
How many days is this?
They were found the day after, so she was shot 3 days previous to this.
Oh, my word.
It gets worse. The second group took the surviving woman to a nearby cabin to try and treat her.
Well, at least they took her with them.
But the owner of the cabin would not let the woman inside.
Oh, no.
So,
Jesus would not have done that.
It gets worse.
Stop it.
She was taken to the Bridge cabin.
Oh, that's the best place for her.
Yeah. And they did let her inside, but she died that same day. So that's where she is included in that count. So yeah, the Bridges who killed her, like tried to kill her, that's where she's taken.
Yeah, we'll take care of her. Bring her on
Yeah.
in. We know just what to do.
So
Y'all.
I know when I was like, what? Like she, okay. Anyways,
Y'all, if you find somebody,
hurt, like help,
well, I mean, now we
or
have
at
like
least
911.
call someone to help.
You know, I mean, if you don't have a signal, I get it. I get it.
God, it's terrible.
But I mean, like wait and wait for the emergency vehicles to get to where you have a signal and bring them to the person or something. I mean, I'm just saying.
Fun fact people might not be aware of.
Ain't nothing fun about that.
No, this is a fun fact, though, that people might not be aware of. If you have an old cell phone, whether it is connected to a cellular network or not, as long as the phone is on, you can dial 911 and the call will go through.
Interesting.
So if you're ever like, and I know some people might not be in that situation, but if like maybe when you go hiking or something, maybe take an old cell phone that's charged with you just in case yours does die, in case you do need emergency assistance. Like there's some kind of law that they put that into effect that no matter whether the phone is activated on a cellular network, it has to dial 911.
But it still has to have a signal.
It does have to have a signal, but regardless, it has to dial 911.
Yeah.
So just in case anything like that ever happens, like people have old phones that they like leave in the glove box of their car or something like that, just in case that event ever happens to you. Just an interesting law. I know in the U.S., I don't know about outside of the U.S. So Thursday of the same week, Hudson, the Sawyers, Bridge Sr., and one Bridge son, and Andrew Jones, the kid, were all arrested. Harper ran into the woods and he was never found. The kid, Andrew Jones, and Sawyer's son were released on bond while the rest were in the newly built log cabin Madison County Jail.
Okay, wait. So Harper left his son. He's like,
Harper didn't have a kid with him.
Okay, but you said Harper's son.
Sawyer's son.
So, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said
I told you. There's
Harper's
a lot
son.
of names here, guys.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you're fine. It can get confusing. So, yes, Sawyer's son.
I'm sorry.
Bridge had two sons. One of them is the one that left the group halfway through. Sawyer had one son that he brought with him. And then there was the kid, Andrew Jones. So those are the younger people in the story. The four men were tried in Madison County with 7 of the top lawyers in the state defending them. They were indicted on April 8th of 1824 and went to court in October of the same year. It was pushed off because the judge was sick for like a very long time, so they had to push it off for a while. Between April and October, it's reported that the men escaped many times, but they were recaptured.
Oh.
Hudson was tried first. Not to be confused with Harper. Harper's the one that ran.
Yes.
Hudson was tried first. Andrew Jones, the kid, was a key witness for the prosecution. However, the defense called no witnesses on Hudson's behalf. The jury deliberated only an hour before they found Hudson guilty. Some people were surprised by the verdict. Hudson was sentenced to death by hanging, with an execution date set for December 1st of 1824. It was the first time any white man in the United States had been sentenced to capital punishment for killing a Native American.
That's why people were surprised.
Yes. The trial for the other 3 men were postponed. Hudson appealed to the Indiana Supreme Court, which was then in session at Corydon, Indiana. The court issued an opinion on November 13th of 1824, written by Chief Justice Isaac Blackford, that upheld the lower court's decision and rejected all points of Hudson's appeal.
Good.
Hudson escaped from jail and hid this. This was interesting, guys. Hudson escaped from the jail and hid beneath the floor of a vacant cabin where he suffered from frostbite and dehydration.
Good.
He was recaptured 10
I mean,
days.
I'm sorry, but good.
He was recaptured 10 days later. He came as just reminds me of anyways, something else, a whole other case I won't get into. He was found when he came out of hiding to get water,
Hmm.
and he was returned to the Madison County Jail. While he was missing, the execution date had to be rescheduled for the following January. So on January 12th, 1825, a large crowd, which reportedly include several Seneca and Shawnee natives, gathered to witness the historic execution. The condemned man had to be carried to the gallows due to the frostbite he suffered while he was in hiding.
You know what?
I hate it for you, bro, but you're...
I mean, I'm sorry that you were in such discomfort.
Right?
But I mean,
It's insane.
You put yourself into the situation,
Right.
and killing is bad, as I've said a couple of times.
Correct. The trials of the remaining 3 men, Bridge Senior, the other Bridge son is actually Bridge Junior.
Mm-hmm.
There was the third Bridge son, but he was not included in this.
He was
So,
like, no.
and Andrew Sawyer, who was the dad Sawyer. Cats. Their trial began on May 9th of 1825 in the 3rd Judicial Circuit Court in Madison County. After 15 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict in Sawyer's case. He was found guilty of manslaughter, not murder, for killing one of the women. His punishment...
Is that the one that hung on for 4 days?
I don't know.
I mean...
They didn't specify. His punishment...
Oh, no.
...was 2 years in prison and a fine of $100.
Oh, my gosh.
Bridge Jr., who faced 2 murder charges in Logan's death, was tried next. The jury found him guilty after 3 hours of deliberation on both counts. However, they recommended a pardon for the teenager due to the influence of his father and his uncle. The jury took only a few minutes to return a guilty verdict for Bridge Sr., and then Andrew Sawyer was tried and found guilty of murder as well. The petition to request a pardon for the younger Bridge was submitted to the state and cited, quote, his youth, ignorance, and the manner in which he was led into the transaction. It went unanswered. On June 3rd of 1825, another large crowd, including numerous Native Americans from surrounding villages, gathered for the executions, which were all conducted at one time. Sawyer was hanged first, followed by the execution of Bridge Sr. His 18-year-old son, John Bridge Jr., witnessed both of the hangings before being led to the gallows and fitted with a noose and a hood. At that point, Governor Ray had arrived on horseback. He moved through the crowd and stopped the execution. After presenting the pinioned teenage prisoner with a written pardon, the governor announced, "Here is your pardon. Go, sir, and sin no more."
Wow.
The young prisoner was immediately set free. A Seneca chief in attendance at the hangings. A Seneca chief was in attendance at the hangings and the dramatic pardon, and he remarked to the crowd, "We are satisfied." Complete details of all the related events remain unknown. The original transcripts of the trials were destroyed in a fire in Madison County Courthouse in 1880.
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah. In Fall Creek Park in Pendleton, Indiana, a stone marker reads, which this made me really mad. In Fall Creek Park in Pendleton, Indiana, a stone marker reads, 3 white men were hung here in 1825 for killing Indians. Just kind of makes me mad because it's like, anyways, maybe let's put it in a different wording. I don't know. But in 1966, the Indiana Sesquicentennial, Commission.
150 years.
They erected an historical highway marker noting the incident along State Route 38, 1/2 mile east of Markleville, Madison County. It reads, in 1824, 9 Indians were murdered by white men near this spot. The men were tried, found guilty, and hanged. It was the first execution of white men for killing Indians. And that is the story of the Fall Creek Massacre.
I mean, I'm kind of glad the 18-year-old got a pardon just because.
I know, frontal lobe stuff. I get it. It's still frustrating. Like, I feel like, yes, you were pardoned, but I feel like he should have served something more.
That's I was following up.
Yeah.
I feel like he needed to have some sort of punishment. And I mean, I gotta say, watching your dad and other, close family friend, and I'm sure he had been in prison for a while as well. I mean, he did serve time, and I look at now, a lot of times it, your sentence will be time served will apply to your sentencing, and I get that. And so, yeah, probably, some other punishment should have applied, but he was 18 at the time that he was pardoned. He was 17 at the time of the crime.
Maybe. They weren't even in jail for a year. Like, this was not, so they were not in jail for any substantial amount of time. At this point, I think it had been, by the time of this execution, the second round of executions, it had been a year since. So, yeah, he would have had to have
that's
been.
what I'm saying. Like, it was about a year with all of this. It was probably almost a year, is what I'm saying. So, like, that's my nephew's age.
Yeah.
Now, not saying that he doesn't know right from wrong.
Right.
However.
Correct.
However, and I know that I especially at 17 years old would be more led to do what my father was telling me to do, and what my father said was right. I would be more led to follow what he was saying than to think for myself. And I don't. That's maybe not the right terminology, but I was still very much developing. I was still in my father's house.
As someone, yes, and I think the better way to say it is, as someone who is taught all of their life that your parents are right and you need to do what your parents say. Yes, I think that's where that comes. It's a sense of loyalty and a sense of,
and my parents are my example, and I follow my parents' example.
I think that's where it comes from.
And so I can totally see that now. His parent was wrong.
Oh, 100%. I mean, and it's just,
it's a sad situation.
There was no reason for any of it.
And no reason.
I mean, not even like, they were just like, oh, maybe they stole the horses. And then what got me is it was like, the horses came back on their own.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, maybe you could have waited a few days.
I mean, I don't know. I think they used it as an excuse.
I'm sure.
But it's just frustrating because it's like, are you serious?
But then you look at it. I mean, I say that, and you're told that, but then same age, those kids go to war.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard, but I mean, I'm glad that he was given a second chance. He probably should have been punished more further, but I will tell you, I'm certain that he had that guilt that he carried around.
He did,
for the rest of his life.
I didn't go into it, but they did discuss his life afterwards and kind of what happened with it. He did move pretty far away from it.
I was gonna say, I wonder if he stayed there or if he moved away.
No.
I would hope that he
pretty
did.
much almost immediately, but he lived to be like in his 70s. So I mean, he lived a pretty long life. He was a farmer.
Life?
I don't know. They just said that he did move away. He eventually did have a family of his own, and he was a farmer, and that he lived into his 70s. But that was about all that I could really find on him.
I would hope that he lived a good life and that he learned.
I would hope he lived
a
repentant life.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
that's
I hope
he didn't follow in his father's footsteps.
Which it doesn't seem that was the case, but it's just stories like it's just irritating. I mean, there were kids involved, like kids, like under the age of 10.
I
And that's what
know.
I'm just like, what kind of monster are you? That like that's a kid. A kid. It's
Mm-hmm.
insane. And which always gets me like watching the news and stuff like that when like kids go missing or
I
anything,
know.
which if a lot of you have been following, which some of you might not have been, but I do know that we have some listeners that are in Australia. There was a little girl that had gone missing in Australia. She was very little. She was very cute. Oh, precious. I say was.
Chloe.
She is cute. I think that was her
Is-
name. Precious little girl. Anyways, which is terrifying as a parent, she
Yes.
was kidnapped from a tent sleeping by her parents, which is just terrible. But and you know what? Good on this neighbor because you know the way that they ended up figuring it out. So the neighbor to the guy who kidnapped the little girl, if you don't know who she is, go look her up. She's precious.
Blonde
They
is
gave
the
her
picture with the popsicle.
yeah, the picture of the popsicle, but I don't she might have really light brown hair. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing a bunch of posts about her and she's so adorable. Anyways, the way that they ended up figuring it out is the neighbor to the guy who kidnapped her noticed that the neighbor was purchasing diapers and was like, hold on,
You don't have a
he doesn't
kid.
have any kids, and called the police or called the authorities. And that's how they ended up figuring out that it was her.
Wow.
And so they raided the house, and that guy had a lot of issues.
Mm.
It was really sad. He had it's very terrifying that he kidnapped her in the first place, but it was very creepy. He had a weird thing about dolls. Which is creepy to begin with.
Ugh.
I mean, if you like dolls, I'm not trying to say anything negative about you because you like dolls.
But
Um
he had a creepy liking of dolls. I mean, there you
yeah.
can like dolls and you can like dolls, and there's a very big difference.
Yeah, Cleo. I had to look
Cleo,
it up.
that's
Yes, her
it.
name is
That's it.
Cleo Smith. I had to find. There's another podcast that follows us. They're called they're the Murderific podcast, but they had been posting regularly about her and about her being
I knew it
missing.
started with a C.
Yeah, it's Cleo. I was like, I don't know if Chloe's it, but yes, her name is Cleo,
That's it.
and she was found, which is fantastic. And yeah, it's so many times, which I'm always hyper vigilant about. She was 4 years old. Okay, I have this. So this was posted 4 days ago. It says that she was found. She was allegedly abducted from her family's tent in Western Australia 19 days before.
Mm.
So she was alive for quite a
That's
while.
terrifying.
Cleo Smith was found by police in a private home around 30 miles from the campsite and has been reunited with her family. And yes, there was a local man. He was arrested. And the deputy commissioner said, "It's my privilege to announce that in the early hours of this morning, the Western Australia Police Force rescued Cleo Smith. Cleo is alive and well." And that's very odd because, which is so cute. One of the officers, so they go into it. I'll just read this part. The commissioner said a police team broke their way into a locked house in and I'm sorry if I say this right, Carnarvon, maybe. Sorry, Australians, if I said that wrong. At about 1 a.m. local time, and found a child who identified herself as Cleo. One of the officers who found her picked the child up and asked her name. She replied, "My name is Cleo."
I read that.
They said this is the outcome that we all hoped for. She vanished from her family's tent. It was the family's first time to the tourist site since the birth of Cleo's youngest sister and their first night in the tent after arriving at about 6 p.m. on Friday. Cleo's mother, which this is what had a place in my heart, her mom's name is Ellie, told reporters early in the search that Cleo woke at 1:30 a.m. and asked for a drink of water before going back to sleep. When they woke at 6 a.m., Cleo was gone. Um, yes. Cleo's sleeping bag was also missing, and the zip on the tent was at such a height that police surmised that she had to have been abducted. Um, And yeah, that's what happened. It was a next door neighbor, saw the guy, and he was buying, they said nappies, and it was just really cute.
Yeah.
And so that's how they realized, and they were like, hey, this neighbor, and the guy, I'm sorry. I hate to judge people by this guy's creepy looking. Like, he's not, it's one of those that I saw his picture and was like, oh, that's unsettling. Like, which I have that way of looking at pictures of people and just going, ooh, I don't like that vibe. So Cleo was found, and it was adorable. And yes, they did show a photo of her sitting in a hospital bed. She was completely fine. She wasn't hooked up to anything, but she was eating a
they
popsicle.
had to check her out and everything.
Yeah, they had to check her out. But it was just, which is the reason that I say that's very odd, because most times child abductions are by someone they know. It is like a less than 1% chance that it'll be a total stranger. It's very rare in those instances.
So scary.
And which a lot of people, it's like a cliche, but that's why there's the show The First 48, because the first 48 hours are the most, like in those cases, they're the most, important times. And for her to be found after 19 days was just amazing.
Yeah.
We have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information you're looking for. It's onenationundercrime.com. We are One Nation Under Crime on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and at ONUC Pod on Twitter. If you love our podcast as much as we do, please follow us and recommend us to your friends, family, coworkers, strangers on the street. We are still giving you stickers if you leave us a 5-star review. So please do that, and send it to me. And please
we might even post it on Instagram.
We might. You've seen them on there before. We do have a Patreon.
Happens.
If you would like to help with the cost of making and hosting,
we would like you to
show,
do that.
I would greatly appreciate it, especially right. Anyways, anyways, these animals, they're gonna be the end of me. So we greatly appreciate you guys sticking with us for this week's episode of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here, same time,
different crime,
next week. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all.
Nope.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Claire says bye too.